This is probably the part where I get a motorcycle jacket and say that my new videos are heavier but more melodic, and that's where you're like, oh no, this is it. This is where he's turning butt rock. What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and today we are going to do another viewer comments episode. This is where I take your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas. I do one of these every, 2 months or something like that. I'm going to try to do more of them. Last time I said I was going to answer some of these comments on my second channel, I lied. I never got around to it. What I am going to do this time is answer all the ones I didn't get to in a podcast, because that is something I can guarantee that I will get around to. So if you have not yet subscribed to the Punk Rock MBA podcast, you can do that at the link in the description. I'll answer the rest of the questions I didn't get to on there, maybe next week. And also, speaking of my second channel, if you haven't seen that, that is where I talk about business and marketing and entrepreneurship and personal development, stuff that's not really a fit. It's not music related, so it's not a fit for this channel. So if that kind of stuff sounds interesting to you, then you can hit the link to that in the description as well. And let's get into the comments.
Rant about your favorite metal bands and your general history with the genre.
First one from Napoleon Syndrome. Will you be revisiting black metal with a more open mind and checking out newer, less pure black metal bands who haven't stuck to mixing D&D with lo-fi necro sound? The answer is no, but here's why. A lot of the comments on that video rely on the premise that I don't know that much about black metal or that I haven't heard a lot of it. It's really just not true. I certainly don't know as much about black metal as I do like death metal or thrash or metalcore or lots of other genres. But I mean, I've been paying attention to it since 1994. I'm not new to it. And I actually like that necro D&D kind of stuff. I mean, the examples I showed in that video were like Have a Hedge, Abruptum, and some of the LLN bands.
Sodomize the holy asshole.
Next one from Meow the Rainbow X. You seem to have no problem with what many call selling out, but does it ever go too far in your opinion? What's a famous example of selling out that you don't respect? I'll tell you an example of selling out that I do respect is Our Last Night. If you watch my interview with them, they know exactly what they're doing. They're not dumb, they're very smart, they know the score, and they're happy. Matt and Trevor have great lives. They've got beautiful families, nice houses down in Nashville, and those covers of Who Let the Dogs Out and Hit Me Baby One More Time or whatever else they do, that's what pays for it. That may not be what you would want to do with your career, and that's totally valid, but if they're happy doing it, then good for them. From C. Banksy, if you had a record label, which 5 unsigned artists would you sign? Well, I don't know about unsigned artists, but if I had to pick 5 artists in general, number 1 would be Drain, my current favorite hardcore band. Number 2 would be City Morgue, who are my current favorite, underground alternative rappers. Number 3 would be Amir, because it's Amir and I love Amir. Number 4 would be Charli XCX, because I shamelessly stan for Charli, as you guys know. And number 5, Five Finger Death Punch, because fuck it, why not? From Metal Fan, what's your favorite Deicide album? Mine is Once Upon the Cross. My favorite is the self-titled, or maybe Legion. Deicide's very underrated these days. I don't hear people bring their name up at all when it comes to old school death metal. Very unfortunate. Their first couple albums are so good. And next up from Dilate, since you do videos on genre fashion, what are your favorite fashion trends that you would not be embarrassed to rock yourself? You know what I want to bring back? The jerkin look. You remember jerkin music, like New Boys, and all those rapper kids from LA that would wear purple zebra striped neon skinny jeans with a Pierce the Veil shirt? It's been 10 years, we can bring it back, right? And who better to do it than an old white guy? I think it'd be a good look for me.
Call me SpongeBob, stack of Krabby Patties.
Next, from Ian Barrett. If you could kill off one subgenre of rock or metal music, which one would it be? This is an easy one, buttcore. And if you haven't heard me talk about buttcore, well, what I mean is all the metalcore bands that basically sound like some combination of Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, and Periphery. The genty nu metal kind of thing that all these bands are doing now that all sound the same. If I could just press a button and make all that stuff go, I might think about it. But in all seriousness, I wouldn't kill off anything that anybody is doing. If they are happy doing it and the fans enjoy it, then I sincerely support it. I might gently make fun of this stuff, or I may have some criticisms of it, but that doesn't mean I want to get rid of it. I support anybody who has what it takes to actually get out there and make something and put it out into the world. If you've done that, whether I like it or not, I support you. And one more, I got a few requests to have my wife in my videos, which I'm interested in because she is pretty funny, but the problem is she also talks a lot of shit. So let me know what you guys think.
Parker Cannon is trying so hard not to lose his temper over a fucking thought. Can you imagine, like, being so angry at a girl that you would write these lyrics and then, like, repeat it, like, 6 or 7 times?
And next from Jessica Baskin, thoughts on transgender representation in rock and metal. So I actually just did a podcast where I talk about this stuff a little bit with Connie from CU Space Cowboy, who, as some of you guys know, is trans. So look for that soon. My whole life, I didn't know any trans people, or at least not any out trans people. And what I realized a while ago was like, man, I actually know a lot of trans people now. I don't know, there's probably at least a dozen or so that follow me that I talk to regularly, and there's probably more that I'm not aware of. So as to your question about representation of trans people, I would say, like, in punk and hardcore, it seems to me that it's fairly strong. And at least in hardcore, if you say anything transphobic, probably you get your ass kicked, which is a good thing. That's probably not true in metal, so I would say that metal probably has more work to do than hardcore does. But for any trans people who may be watching, I would love to hear what you think. From Devin Parker, what is your definition of a good song? You mentioned before that many modern day bands aren't producing good songs, mentioning bands like Motionless in White as examples of bands that are. So what do you actually consider a good song? Well, what I consider a good song would be something that's catchy and memorable. And the main thing there is typically like a really strong vocal hook. Doesn't have to be, like, for example, Raining Blood or Angel of Death, I think have like really strong guitar hooks. But that's pretty rare. I think for the most part, a vocal melody is what makes a good song. So if you're in a band and you want to level up your songwriting, what I would do is go listen to whatever like popular radio songs are out there right now, dissect the vocal melody and rhythm and patterns and arrangement, and then do your own version of that. Try like listening to a Selena Gomez song and applying some of what she does to your vocals. I know that sounds crazy, but it actually works.
And I'll regret it if I didn't say this isn't what it could be.
And next from Xenocyte, maybe do a video about nintendocore. These bands are very influential, especially in the underground deathcore scene. Most bands had a really tight connection to their fan base, Horse the Band, etc., etc. I get a lot of requests for a video about nintendocore, and here's my thinking on it. On the one hand, sometimes these like surprisingly niche things can actually end up being pretty popular. For example, my video about Attack Attack has like 300,000 views now. I did a video about Slam that I think has 200-some thousand views now. But I'm a little bit nervous. Like, I don't want to take my channel in a direction of like this like super niche, obscure, mega nerdy kind of stuff. Like, I want this channel to be more accessible and broader. This is probably the part where I get a motorcycle jacket and say that my new videos are heavier but more melodic, and that's where you're like, oh no, this is it. This is where he's turning butt rock. Maybe I will do a video about it, maybe I won't. I don't know, but that's where my head is at. From Shy Guy Infinity, why do you never talk about doom metal? Number one, all the stuff I said about nintendocore. Number two, I just don't really find it that interesting, but this is a valid point. Kind of like I said in my State of Rock video, how I oftentimes overlook indie rock because it's just like not my thing. I think I probably overlook doom and stoner rock for the same reasons. Like, it's just not my thing. I don't think about it that much, but I recognize that it is very influential, at least as influential as some of the other stuff I talk about. So maybe I will, we'll see.
You ever seen like Metallica or?
Yeah.
You like that kind of stuff too?
Yeah.
From Stephen Ballo, what did you think of the late 90s, early 2000s Total Request Live? Do you think a daily music video top 10 show would ever work again? Come on, who do you think you're talking to? Of course I love TRL. It was sort of like the YouTube of the time, that it kind of made me feel plugged in and connected to a community, even though it was just Carson Daly hanging out with Britney Spears or whatever. For the most part, occasionally would have like pop punk bands or whatever on. And as far as like the second part of that goes, whether I think that would work now, yes, absolutely. I mean, maybe not a exact replica of what TRL was, but some sort of a daily thing like that where a host comes on and talks about like new music and interviews artists and stuff like that. Absolutely. I mean, that's what podcasts are. That's what No Jumper is, basically. That's what The Breakfast Club is. And if I had the time to make that many videos, I would do it too. I love that format. I just need to get a couple bowling shirts like 1997 Carson Daly and I'm set. Next one from Alex G. What do you think about separating the art from the artist? If an artist turns out to have done shitty things like Johnny Craig from Dance Gavin Dance, Jesse Lacey from Brand New, or the extreme examples, the singer from Lost Prophets, can you still listen to their music? I know I can't. Personally, if I think somebody is a shitty person, that makes me kind of not want to listen to their music. And a shitty person could be, you know, obviously like the guy from Lost Prophets, complete piece of shit. But to me personally, like even if someone is just like a dick on Twitter, that makes me kind of not really like their music.
Everybody want to be a bodybuilder,
but don't nobody want to lift no heavy ass weight.
From Polls in the Scene, what's your workout routine? In the post-COVID world where the gym is closed, the jiu-jitsu academy's closed, usually I will do jiu-jitsu like 2 or 3 days a week with like a small group of people at somebody's house, and then I will run or lift another 1 or 2 days aside from that. Do the best you can with what you've got. An imperfect workout is better than no workout at all. Just stay consistent. Don't let COVID be an excuse for doing nothing. Next one from Japanese Bostonian 12. What was your favorite video to make or the topic it was about? Maybe my favorite video that I've ever done would be the Adulting for Core Kids one about things that I wish I knew in my 20s that I fucked up and learned the hard way, like don't move for a girl, don't make partying your lifestyle. Like, I should probably do a sequel to that. And if you want more content like that, check out my second channel because I've got a lot more on there. From Trevor Calfee, have you ever considered doing a video on dubstep and how it's eaten a lot of metal's lunch as the new headbanger genre? Yes, I have. And this has been the case since the 90s. Like, if you know Bass Nectar, he was in a death metal band called Pale Existence. My friend Max from Spaz put out their 7-inch in like 95 or something like that. So this crossover between like bass music and metal has always been there, kind of for the reasons that you said. Like, it is a headbanger genre. People ask for this video a lot, and I think it's a really good idea, so I definitely need to do it. It's just like gonna be a lot of work, so I keep putting it off, but I gotta do it, so I will. From Andrew S. When was the last time you heard a track and had that wow moment? In the world of like heavy music, I would say probably the latest Amir album. From Dead06969, why punk rock when you talk metal? Actually, I should read that like in a caveman voice. Why punk rock when you talk metal? I get this question a lot, and the answer, I talk about this in more detail in my What Killed Punk video. The answer is really simple. That to me, punk is not a specific style of music that sounds like something from 1981 or whatever. It is like an attitude and an energy and a set of values that I think can take any number of like sonic forms. So in 1981, punk meant GBH and the Ramones or whatever. In 1995, it meant The Offspring. And in 2020, I think it means City Morgue and Nascarallo. Now, as far as metal goes, you'll notice the stuff that I talk about is punk adjacent or like crosses over with punk and hardcore. You know, I don't do videos about Amon Amarth or Opeth or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with those bands, they're great. But, you know, that is a little bit outside the purview of what I talk about. So to me, everything that I talk about can be very clearly traced back to like the roots of the punk family tree, even if they don't sound like, you know, classic punk from 1981. I understand that some people don't see things that way, but what are you gonna do? And from AsDam52, do you play any instruments yourself? Yes, I do. I don't really play anymore, but I've played guitar forever. I can play drums a little bit. I actually have a joke slam band called Pedestalment, which is on Spotify if you want to hear it. As you can tell, I was trying very hard to sound like Cerebral Incubation. I played everything on this except for the vocals, which was by Samantha Smith. I also recorded and mixed it. It is like a joke band that I did just to kind of fuck around, but I actually think it turned out pretty well.
What's your name? What's your sign? What's your birthday? What's your wrist tattoo? Bible verse say?
From Kelsey Garcia, do you have a favorite country record or artist? You seem to like a broad spectrum of music, and I'm curious, I hope you and your wife have a wonderful day. I actually do listen to a fair amount of like Walmart pop country. I really like the stuff that, according to Grady Smith, is called like boyfriend country. I actually really like the lyrics. They're very relatable to me. You know, as you guys can tell at this point in my life, I'm a pretty like G-rated married guy that just like wants to hang out with my wife and family and do normal people stuff. So listening to country songs where they talk about like family and being grateful for what you have and stuff like that, I identify with those lyrics, and I think that's a big part of why the genre is popular. And along the same lines from Luke, what are some of your favorite non-punk / scene bands or artists, and why? Any artists you dig that your audience might be surprised to learn? I talked about this before, but I actually listen to a ton of pop and rap. I mean, that's obvious to anybody who follows me on Spotify. Like, what the fuck? I was listening to like fucking Ariana Grande or Iggy Azalea or some dumb shit like that. Why don't you listen to metal? I like metal. I've been listening to it for 30 years. I still listen to Morbid Angel and Deicide, but I also really like pop and rap. What I'm really into right now, what I talked about in my last video, is like stripper fight music. My favorite artist in that genre right now would be Light Skin Keisha.
Say she don't like me, I don't give a shit. 3 words and it went like this.
suck my dick.
There's another artist that I really like a lot named Rez Coast Grizz, which is sort of like the emo Native American Post Malone.
Show him that I love him, but I can't 'cause he dead now. He will beat blood riding for the hometown.
I really literally like anything and everything. Yes, even black metal. From Scenic City Slaughter, who are your dream podcast guests at this point? Okay, well, I've got quite a list, but on the music side of things, I would love to have Adam22 on from No Jumper. I know sometimes he watches, so Adam, if you would like to be on, let me know. Ronnie Radke, also want to have him on to talk about Twitch. He's crushing it on there. As far as people outside of kind of the music world, one would be Matt Best from Black Rifle Coffee Club. I absolutely love that brand and like what he has done with his social media. Sara Dietschy, she's like a photography and like creativity YouTuber. Super jealous of her and I try to copy her all the time. And also, I know that nobody in my audience would care about this at all, but Jason Calacanis from This Week in Startups, which is one of my favorite like business podcasts.
That's like that arrogance, that false, misplaced anger and arrogance that some of these fucking musician critics have.
And from Blob Blobkins, have you seen Ronnie Radke watching your video about Ronnie Radke? Yes, I have, and I'm happy that he liked it. I actually talked to him when I was making it because I had the radical idea of when you're making a video about somebody, actually reaching out to them and getting their input on it. So I'm happy that he thought it turned out well. And from None More Ben, hey Finn, I really enjoy your channel and always have. My favorite stuff that you have done was a lot of the kind of point of view on life as an adult hardcore kid stuff. As a fellow member of the hardcore community who has grown up and seen that I made a lot of poor decisions in my 20s, that stuff did a lot for me. Why has it been that you've seen me move away from videos like that? Simple fact of it is that it just doesn't perform that well, which kind of bums me out because I really like doing that stuff. But you know, the numbers speak for themselves. When I try to do like more life advice kind of stuff, like my audience really just doesn't react that strongly to it. So I've quit trying to force that. I'm just giving people what they want, which is entertainment. However, I've actually done a lot more stuff like that on my second channel and on my podcast. So if you like that stuff, check out the second channel and the podcast. I'm actually doing more of that stuff than ever, just not on my main channel.
She's a frickin' demon and she stinks, and so does Obama. And I go like, what? Sulfur.
From Ashley Shotzi, what are your thoughts on conservatives in punk, like Michael Graves coming out as a Proud Boy, for instance? I don't follow Michael Graves, so I don't know specifically what he's saying. I actually do make a deliberate effort not to like be echo chambered. I consume content on the right and the left. There are certainly a lot of very thoughtful, interesting conservatives, like, you know, Rob Smith, I like a lot. The Cato Institute is great. As far as like those people in punk, I think a lot of them do it just to be like edgelords. I don't think anything they have to say is particularly insightful. I don't have time for that shit. From Tyler, do you ever feel like other professionals in the business world take your work less seriously because you make content for the scene? No, not at all, actually. And I thought they would. I was kind of scared of that. I mean, I thought I was scared of that when I got a bunch of tattoos and stuff too, but my experience has been actually the exact opposite. Now, granted, I live in Seattle. I live on the West Coast, which is a very like open-minded sort of place. And I typically either have worked in either creative fields or tech. Again, two fields that are very like open. But even like when I worked at Abercrombie & Fitch, which is in Ohio and is obviously not, you know, this, nobody cared. So if that's what you're concerned about in your own career, I wouldn't worry about it. I think it'd be fine.
So when you first start off, growth is very slow. After they realize how slow this growth is, they quit.
From Doug Black Jr., how do you build an audience? I feel like your channel grew fast and I'm always curious how one grows a tribe like this. This is a very long question that would take me like an hour to answer properly, but what it comes down to is have a point of view. Like for me, I talk about alternative music from the perspective of a business operator, which is not a thing anybody else does. Other stuff like how do you shoot and edit and what kind of camera do you get and titles and thumbnails and all that, like that stuff does matter, but not nearly as much as the first thing of like having a point of view and getting that across in a really clear, compelling way.
And if they're able to get through that barrier, there's another barrier of much faster growth. Growth isn't fast enough. When they begin to plateau, they quit.
From GK Bostero 12, did the death of a musician ever have a profound effect on you? And if so, do you have any advice for how fans should react, especially younger fans? The one person who did affect me recently was Hella Sketchy. He was one of these emo rappers. He died of an OD, I think maybe about 1.5 years ago or so when he was 18. I had no personal connection to him, but it just made me really sad because he's 18 years old. So talented, like seemed like a nice kid. and he was trying to get clean. As far as how to deal with it, I remember like when Kurt Cobain died when I was in 8th or 9th grade, I don't remember which, like there were kids who were wearing black for like weeks and like crying in the hallway and stuff like that. And I would say don't let it affect you that much. Try to learn something from it. You know, somebody like Kurt Cobain, a lot of these people who die of an overdose or suicide, clearly there is some mental health issue at the root of that. So maybe use that as a chance to like step back and ask yourself if mental health is something that you maybe need to think about or one of your friends or family members need to think about. It's serious stuff. You can't ignore it. It might be life and death.
Just to make fun of my drug use. You ain't never had a struggle with the abuse.
From Shofar Kills. Something I'm curious about is why you praise rappers for bringing back dead genres such as pop punk or mall screamo, yet condemn core bands for doing new metal and industrial hard rock. It seems hypocritical, almost as if you don't want the rock bands to thrive and just want rappers to take over. Why can't we have both? Well, you are right. I actually meant to point this out in the video. It is hypocritical. Part of it is just because I don't like that kind of new metal-y, industrially, genty kind of sound. So that's just personal bias on my part, which is a pretty bullshit reason. Number two is a somewhat more valid reason, because the whole premise of that video and the reason why I kind of hate on that stuff a little bit is because I don't think it's bringing in a younger audience, which is what's needed to keep rock alive and relevant in the future. But also, yes, you're right, I am just being a hypocritical hater. It's true. Sorry about that. From Victor Rod 182, would you do another album review video like the one you did for Issues? No, probably not. For one, because that one did not do very well at all. And also because I don't really want to. Like, this channel is not about my personal taste in music. To me, what it's about is business and consumer psychology. It's like understanding why people do the things they do, why they like the things that they like, why they buy the things that they buy. That's really what I'm here to talk about, because it's not about what I do or don't personally like. And there's other people that do reviews better than I ever could, like Anthony Fantano, for example, is the best in the world at doing reviews. So I leave it to them. From Jose Montoya, what are the best worst parts of being your age and keep in touch with the music scene made by younger people? I understand that my role now is an observer, not a participant. Like, I'm not trying to hang out and like be best friends with like these emo rappers that I listen to. And that's fine. I have a lot of other things going on in my life that have nothing to do with music, my family, businesses. I think the thing you want to watch out for is like if being tied to being part of the music scene is like all you have, that's when it gets a little weird when you're like the 40-year-old guy that is still that guy.
What's my age again? What's my age again?
All right, my friends, that does it for this installment of viewer comments. Thank you very much to everybody who sent in a question or a comment. Like I said, I'm going to answer a bunch more of these in a podcast. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, you can do that at the link in the description. Before I let you go, I want to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon, especially those who support at the true cult level or above. They get access to every podcast a week early. There's a private Discord server that I'm in all the time. There's a chance to have me review your band or YouTube channel or podcast or design portfolio or whatever else it is that you would like me to take a look at. So if that sounds interesting to you, you can check it out at the link in the description. And with that, I will sign off for now, but I will see you next time.